would now like to introduce Dr. Azza Karam, who will then make the introduction for Lopa Banerjee. Dr. Karam is a senior culture advisor for the United Nations Population Fund, better known as UNFPA. Dr. Azza Karam serves as I have said, in that position where she coordinates fund-wide global activities on culture and religion. Prior to joining UNFPA, she was the Senior Policy Research Advisor at the UN Development Program in the Regional Bureau for Arab States, where she worked on the Arab Human Development Reports, among other portfolios including knowledge and youth. Her programmatic experience spans the fields of global multi-religious collaboration, gender issues, governance, human rights, conflict, and political Islam. Prior to joining the UN, Dr. Karam worked at the World Conference of Religions for Peace, where she founded the first global Women of Faith network and advised on issues related to Muslim and Arab affairs. Also during this time, she served as the president of the Committee of Religious NGOs at the UN. I have long admired Dr. Karam for her ability to be a very rock-solid moderator, but also having calm and poise beyond description. Dr. Karam, please.
Thank you so very much for that lovely introduction. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be with you this year again, as of last year, and I want to pay tribute to the committee members for organizing not only this event, but really, in my opinion, trying to keep the spiritual fabric of the UN system and our partners very much linked up together to help us all navigate some very difficult terrain, but to do so with civility and grace. So thank you very much to all the members of the committee and the organization. I have the very, very distinct privilege, in my opinion, of being able to introduce somebody who is very worthy of being the spirit of the United Nations. I don't know how many of you had this experience before, but you hear a name, and it's not someone you know, but it's a name. And it rings a bell. It somehow seems to make the strings of your heart move just a little bit, as if there was a gentle breeze that went right through the strings of your heart. Sometimes that is the name of someone whom you may not have met yet, and that actually has happened to me. I heard the name of Lopa Banerjee in 2004 for the first time when I joined UNDP. And I remember that feeling of, there's that little bell, and I don't know her, but there's that little bell again. There's that breeze that passes through the heart. And shortly thereafter, I managed to read something written by or authored by none other than Lopa Banerjee. Not just one thing, but several. And I begin to realize that this is somebody who I can have an immediate connection with. Across, it turns out, across plenty of geographic terrain, thousands of miles, we had not seen each other. In fact, we only set eyes upon each other a couple of years ago. But the name of Lopa Banerjee, the legacy of Lopa Banerjee, precedes meeting her. And many of you will see why very shortly. Lopa's claim to fame is not only what you see in the bio that you have, as impressive as it is, but Lopa's one of those voices of conscience herself. Someone who speaks and has identified issues that are of tremendous import to us in the world of international human development. But most significantly, somebody who can see how the social, the political, the economic, the financial can come together into a coherent whole and affect us, and how we can actually move through these seemingly insurmountable barriers to make a difference, as individuals, as communities, and above all, as women. Lopa is one of the people whom I have learned tremendously from, through her life, by example. Not only is she somebody who's very proficient in articulate and deeply articulate, as again you will see very shortly. I hope I'm whetting the appetite. But Lopa is somebody who will have you spellbound when she speaks. Not only because she speaks powerfully, but because she speaks powerfully the truth. And she speaks powerfully to analysis. And she speaks powerfully to how we can make a difference, because she herself has made that difference and continues to in her life. I asked Lopa, I said, tell me 3 things about you that you wouldn't mind sharing in a public gathering that nobody else might know. And would you just tell me so that I can share them about you? And this is Lopa's response. I have a 23-year-old daughter who is the light of my life. And my work is a tribute to her and to so many other young women of conscience like her. I love the theater and used to act myself and believe that the language of music, theater, and art should be spoken more universally to create beauty and joy in the world. And my absolute, she could have spoken for me and a whole bunch of us, I love New York. I love its pulsating energy, its fabulous diversity, its real, livable spirit. It is a state of mind that I love living in. Ladies and gentlemen, Lopa Banerjee.
I hereby confer the Spirit of the UN Award on Lopa Banerjee. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so very, very much for this honor. And Azza, sister of my heart, thank you. You do me beyond honor with that introduction. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you to all of you for recognizing the important work of women's rights movement building, because that is what I do, and that is what you honor with this award. Also for celebrating the idea of the United Nations and the hope of its charter, that ultimately, no matter what disappointments and failures and tragedies we endure, the spirit of we the peoples, a world united in a common vision of peace, equality, and justice will prevail. I stand here both humbled and strengthened by the enormous work that women's rights activists do every day and everywhere. Last month, on the evening of Thursday, September 8th, a couple of thousand feminists from all over the world gathered in Brazil at the AWID Forum 2016 to pay tribute to women human rights defenders who had been killed in pursuit of their work. In memoriam, feminists at the forum pledged to honor the dead and fight like hell for the living. For centuries, the feminist fight for gender equality has been the fight for people to live their lives in freedom and justice and dignity. For a life free of violence and discrimination, for the opportunity to read, to speak, to share ideas, to pursue aspirations and ambitions, for people to love as they wish and to own their thoughts and their bodies, and for all peoples everywhere to live in the world as fully dignified human beings. As we near the last months of 2016, this vision of humanity is being torn apart by a world that is hurtling towards ever-escalating inequality, war, and fear. People are fleeing their homelands in vast numbers, and societies are on a perilous path of racism, xenophobia, and misogyny, willfully rolling back progress towards equality. Against all odds, including a famine of resources and threats to life and work, women's rights and civil society groups relentlessly mobilize in countries and communities with creativity and resilience to demand public accountability for gender equality. This feminist mobilization must be amplified and supported by all of us who are bound by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and its promise of a just, equal, and peaceful world. Because the women's movement is the longest, broadest, most transnational movement for fundamental equality in the world. Equality and inclusion are at the heart of the bold new vision for peace, prosperity, and progress that global leaders unanimously adopted in 2015 as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, upholding the moral principle that no one in no country should be left behind in progress and prosperity. No one left behind is not only a moral and human rights principle, but also speaks to the spiritual and faithful concept of inclusion. The belief that all of humanity is deserving of grace, dignity, and justice. And that human rights are about protecting, preserving, and promoting a just universe, bound by codes of equality in which the dignity of all peoples everywhere is enshrined and their full potential realized. But we are not there. The poet Warsan Shire's words resound. I held an atlas in my lap, ran my fingers across the whole world and whispered, where does it hurt? It answered, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Supporting feminist movement building is about stopping the world from hurting. What we need today is a strong, transnational gender equality movement building and gathering strength from grassroots coalitions to local, to national, to global networks. Working across generations and constituencies to build solidarity and overcome silos in pursuit of a collective vision of justice, equality, dignity, and shared prosperity. This inclusive, multi-generational feminist movement needs to be consciously fostered as a political force for global good. And that fostering has to happen at the UN, because that is the role of the United Nations, to strengthen the voice of we, the peoples. So that women and girls and men and boys and people of all genders can take their place at the table to create shared communities and societies that are tolerant, pluralistic, peaceful, equal, just, diverse, creative, curious, and questioning. This is movement building, and this is how we can honor the dead and fight like hell for the living. Across borders and using our words and ideas and technology in service of equality and hope and peace. That is the call of faith, of spirituality, of secular thought, of the UN Charter. That is what we need to stop the world from hurting. I thank you.